Monica de la Torre was born in Mexico City and teaches at Brooklyn College. In addition to being the author of 7 books of poetry, which include Pause the Document, just out from Nightboat Books, she is a translator, a scholar, and among the field's most brilliant interdisciplinarians. Her genre-defying thinking has given us the monumental volume Women in Concrete Poetry, 1959 to 79, which she co-edited, and poetic art writing on rule breakers like Cecilia Vicuña and Felix Gonzalez Torres. Pause the Document is a lyrical outing for Monica, whose penchant for conceptualism has lent itself in the past to project-based books like The Happy End, All Welcome, which explores a set piece from Kafka's America through the formal structure of a job fair. By contrast, her latest book has what the poet Kim Rosenfeld calls a, quote, kaleidoscopic intimacy. End quote. This is me now. Poems grounded in a materialist naming of present conditions. And here I'm quoting Monica. We leave town on and off and on. She writes, the plants seem hardier for it, as if they too needed space. End quote. But of course, she throws her voice around in this book in surprising and hilarious ways too. Yes, there is a play script discourse between the architectural features of an empty room. Did I say that Monica has a penchant for conceptualism? Her work is social. It cannot be apprehended as a bibliography, encompassing performance texts, public interventions, imagined email exchanges, editorial coups, and so much more. She continues to expand the terms of poetry, making it bigger and making it a better place for us all to inhabit. I had the privilege of being Monica's student at Brooklyn College, where she led class with the wisdom and bravado of a master improviser, always asking of our writing, yes, and. She conferred on me and on my classmates that essential first lesson of poetry, that it is a practice before it is a product. And we're so lucky to have her here this evening to keep teaching us that. Please welcome Monica de la Torre.
Parker and that cohort was heroic because they began their MFA on Zoom. I never knew Parker was so tall. I'm glad I didn't know that. When I met him, I was like, whoa. We did have the luck of actually meeting in person the second year of the MFA, and that was really special. Thank you so much for that incredible introduction. I'm very touched by it. And thank you all for coming on this lovely late fall day. What's going on? Thank you, PSA, Matt Brogan, director of the PSA, for being here, an old friend, has been involved in poetry for many, many years. It's just really, really great to be back here. So this week, Alice Notley passed away. And if you ever heard her read in person, she was electric. She was the most incredible reader. She made you feel that she was writing poems for you. And so I wrote a poem, actually, that's in this book, after one of her readings, and this is for her. Priority was handwritten. So I bit my tongue, looked up how to cure mouth sores again in the span of a week, the body trying to tell me something I refused to accept cognitively. Naivete, a word negating what it means, spoken in reference to a third one. Bit myself while chewing a bar of something eaten in lieu of a meal, of the hard and crunchy variety, associated by some with anger. I had wanted to rid myself of the bad taste in my mouth, hearing the voices in your head as sanity's only safeguard. Alice, I felt you were talking to me when reading, but you have never really been in love. And she was saying, yes, once I was. Am I? I fell once, but in Spanish, nunca caí al amor. Cliché, also from the French. I don't really speak. Since my mouth lacks come hither pronouncing lips, the invitation failed to materialize. There is language equality and linguistic equivalence. They are not interchangeable with each other. Absentee was the song playing while I read La cara no es el espejo del alma. La máscara está vacía. Habla sin lengua. Tongueless speech, no one behind the mask. Oh, thank you. Sunstead. So this book was written in, well, I don't need to say that much. You will very soon find out when. I'll read this poem and then we can talk about this. But Sunstead. Amid a few nonplussed party guests, to contemplate Emily's astoundingly inventive dresses for survival in adversity, dresses that grow food, float, and provide seating and shelter, self-irrigating dresses, plaid and inflatable dresses with hooks, storage pouches, and foam extensions. 12 days later, hell itself breathes out contagion to this world, with an unfathomable 267,000 daily infections nationally. It gets worse. Dense brain can't grasp the radiant clusters, the kinetics of the 15th letter of the alphabet. It's all Greek to me. Going bust, too, another high-end clothing retailer joins the experience economy, rebrands itself as a purveyor of experiences in Copenhagen, sometime down the line when experience can be experienced again. Duckface will have to do for the time being. Some don beaks and floral patterns or animal prints with Mickey Mouse on them, logos, slogans, and even sequined beaks, while others continue to refuse them. It's the longest night of the year. Tin tree ornaments from Sueños Inc. come at Leo's behest when showing him our tree on a live video call. Tortuga, elefante, cocodrilo, tigre, león. At 2, he skips 4 when counting to 5. That I didn't get the turtle and the tiger goes unnoticed. In their stead came a serpent and a bull and a giant red pepper to write in signs that a toddler might understand. Never mind the bull's bullfighting attire. Time is either ripe for undoing, unripe for the doing, or all of the above. It's the longest night of the year. That August. We leave town on and off and off and on. The plants seem hardier for it, as if they too needed space. The compulsoriness of our uninterrupted company sucks the air out of the room, pollutes their habitat, as if they too sense the pulsations of our reluctance. 5 more days pass. In that corner of the sky, Orion is the constellation whose pinholes I point out to Jane. Shadow prances as we walk over to a darker area of the field to catch the shooting stars. The sadness of the turn the poem took takes us by surprise. We find ourselves welling up, verbing. We lose our grip. Once, to love the city, you had to hate it every now and again. Disappointment preordained by expectations of returns. There's intermittent eroticism, the erotics of intermittence, and dead ends. Andy says he's gone for good. Aki and Makiko head back to Japan. Neighbors leave for the suburbs. Even Angela, born and bred in the East Village, wants out. The skyline discontinues itself at night. But sidewalk furniture doesn't go unwanted. We rarely visited the joint down the street, menu board blank, awning still there. At the park, a man goes on in disbelief about a Staten Islander who's not once set foot in Central Park. Across the river, we get stuck in traffic on 42nd. A truck driver keeps his cool, plays a flute between lights. The wax museum's reopened. Minnie takes a breather. Mouse mask dangling from neck, face mask over nose and mouth. Another river over, American Dream, a mammoth new complex, remains empty in Jersey. Pretend it's a movie. last January. There's a poem that I don't think I've ever read out loud. It's funny how we keep gravitating towards the same poems. And today I was like, I'm going to read these poems that I keep overlooking when I pick the ones to read. Pretend it's a movie, last January. There is C again, in a park bench near the playground and dog run, as if waiting for me. As if because she's pretending not to, but is. Delays with the paperwork mean no groceries for her today. She needs shoes, men's shoes. Minutes later, a pair materializes on the concrete chess table near us. She has God's ear. In my mouth, again, the taste of awkwardness, as if I'd meant my saying, I'm here to help you. As if I were pretending to be looking for her and am. As if she meant her saying she would pay me back sometime. Don't be silly, I say, not meaning it either. She doesn't do silly. What is and what isn't the case? The world according to an I speaking about you with whom mutuality is possible only in fleeting exchanges. She here relegated to the third person who improbably trusts me as much as I trust her, which isn't saying much. The construction triply negative. In a hurry, I once dodged her to avoid the unease of having to leave, my self-importance. Our re-performances staged in a 4-block radius, movements synchronized like those of Shadow and I, whom she complimented, breaking the ice. We're aware of gaps and they pain us differently. People want stories that illustrate their bridging or its illusion. Here, this doesn't happen. Today, I left the house wanting to ask what story she'd like me to write about her. The story's that good, someone beat me to it, you say. Besides, I'd have to pay for it. You weave together a birth in Tibet, an abduction, a Supreme Court judge, the priest of the church down the street, Barack Obama, a rape, a murder attempt, a cover-up, a 29 million settlement, and just when it's inconceivable there'd be more to add, you mention a forced sex alteration confirmed by doctors upon finding your dick in your stomach. You're playing me, which in my idiom means you're seeing my face. You call me Maria. You still have God's ear. You don't mention housing vouchers, your neighbor's outrage, your empty fridge. Love you is how you say goodbye. Love you too, I mutter as Shadow pulls me back to our square. London plane tree. What empty chatter must they overhear in the polluted habitats for which they're naturals? The person on the nearby park bench utters Nicaragua as if she wanted all to hear her crisp Spanish pronunciation. Why do my taxes have to cover someone else's artificial insemination? Why isn't it letting me go back? There's an imbalance in your body. You have to figure it out. Are you looking at your phone too much before you go to bed? I came here to gauge whether Moses's predilection for the London plane tree is justifiable to the casual eye. I concur with him and also Jane. Hardy, tough, lovely dappled shade. Unlike the silence of effigies, the silence of trees refuses to take sides in history's disputes. Trunks and outspread branches caught mid-motion in the process of letting the light in, about to surpass their own reach as you look. Specimens of all ages recently spotted, standing outside my building, shopping bags snagged on a branch, flanking the landmark street on the way to the neighborhood park, enclosing the Theodore Roosevelt Park outside the Museum of Natural History, delimiting Central Park, the United Nations, and Governor's Island's quadrants where they constitute 54% of the island's total leaf cover. No two trees are exactly similar as I write this. Exfoliating cream, olive, light brown bark blending with limestone and brownstone and sandstone and brick and turning streets into mirages, into cinema. Noble habit. leaves pointing every which way, bending the light, giving it volume, suffusing the frame with a choreographic spontaneity and splendor that makes up for the severity of the grid. Camo hiding its mechanisms. Remote disjunctions. I didn't mind ferns enough, I thought, the last time I hiked up to Lookout Point out in California. They're so unassuming. I'd be looking at the tops of third-generation redwoods or beyond towards Googleplex in Mountain View, which later Google confirmed was the complex off in the distance. And I'd be picturing, those last days, rhizomes and spores. Sorry to make you feel judged, I almost texted. Stopped myself. Truth is, I judge, and if judges were prone to feeling sorry, they wouldn't. I welcome noise instead of trying to block it out with the folk musician song, Scottish, coming from my laptop. If you don't remember a name, does it mean you don't care to remember? You've taken yourself to places whose specifics you've chosen to forget. You said you weren't there to keep track, but to experience, which, when I'm feeling negative, I translate as ditching the thing as soon as you're done with it onto the heap of junk you're not accumulating. Those who get the back end know what detailed tagging can lead to. A map so precise, it's the territory size. We're drifting apart again, spore-like. I'm done completing your sentences. A version of the signs along the trail anticipating the hiker's ups and downs. It begins with feeling was the first. Spotted at the same time I noticed the pet waste bags someone had left behind. Here you leave your worries. Seen after I passed a guy whose grin was such, he did seem to have just dumped them. This one got me thinking about our tendency to ruin things. This is a beautiful moment. The last wasn't part of the art. Please keep out of area under renovation. That resonated. So I have a series of prose poems in a longer sequence called Dream, Caravan, Dream, and I'll read a few of them. 2 editions of a non-existent book, a probable book in which New York School poets discuss the composition of their works. I'm participating in the launch and have traveled with a group to a city reminiscent of Tokyo. We're trying to find the venue and enter the wrong building. The more we get lost, the less I remember what I'd planned to say. A asked me to go fetch her copy of the book, which she forgot at the hotel. I get even more lost, but manage to locate it. Her copy includes a facsimile of her journals. I can't find the pages I earmarked in my own copy of the 2nd edition. I walk into the auditorium a half an hour late, carrying a giant, filthy vat in each hand, which I proceed to hide behind velvet curtains. The poets are seated at a picnic table on stage, and there's a Ouija board at the table. M is there. The other A is there too. She tells me to sit on the bench across from her. I would prefer not to. If I want to face the audience, I'd have to turn my back to the other panelists. Also there, D and G with her new boyfriend, though it's not G, it's B. I'm still sore that she lied to me. I'm trapped on stage. I'm relieved when the moderator begins querying us about our own creative processes. There are 2 planes, one exterior and one interior. The first requires that your antennas are out, that you allow yourself to be guided by whatever is happening outside. The interior one, on the other hand, is like a square by Joseph Albers inside another square that is the interior of an exterior interior. I lose my train of thought, but the moderator doesn't notice. Her fingers are gliding on the Ouija board. My void is called my sister, said the voice I didn't have. Morning thoughts with the consistency of music. a sustained undoneness, confession distorted, as in translation, ions, eons, and other easily confused words, reduplication or the erotics of indeterminateness, rendered as a series of folds. In a single sentence, such as, synapses are plastic, me pierdo en el tiempo, a day's third devoted to the shedding of dead cells, analysis, all memory. Other instances include, the more a patch of grass is trampled, the cleaner the path becomes. A memory of walking is being created. Also, wingding, flim-flam, back-to-back. When asked what transpired, she heard herself blurt out, "I'm not a revenant." I repeat the poem in Spanish a number of times so I can transcribe it upon waking. It's so simple I can't possibly forget it. Later, a search takes me to the sole extant recording of Alejandra Pizarnik's voice. She reads a poem by Arturo Carrera whose title translates to "written with a nictograph." El escriba ha desaparecido. The phrase "future historian of feelings" in another notebook. El poema se abre. Remembering sediments. Esa es tu fuerza. Only a translator might be able to decode them according to the cathartic method. I'm given a book of hers wrapped in craft paper. No trace of the poem, just a password in gift form. I'm going to end with another poem that's not a dream, although it could be. Distance calculator. 1. Take the width of a border between two spaces and split it by as many places the border divides. Repeat as many times as necessary to arrive at 0. 2. Eyeball how many clouds there could be in the sky at any given moment, then count them. Compare the number of clouds you thought you were seeing with the number of clouds you were able to count. Multiply the difference by the time you spent looking upward. The resulting number equals a unit of distance in clouds. 3. For an estimate of the distance between a point within any of the nations on the planet still using the imperial system and any other point outside, multiply the numerical difference between inches and centimeters by that between feet and meters, by that between miles and kilometers. Then multiply that figure by the distance between point A and point B times 2. 4. With a chord 6 times longer than the possible responses to a multiple option question with no adequate choices for you to check. 5. Gauge the temporal and spatial intervals between being at the right place at the right time and being at the wrong place at the wrong time. Quantify in units of gratitude or regret, depending on the situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mónica. It's an honor to welcome Arthur Sze here this evening, who received the Poetry Society's Shelley Memorial Award in 2021, and whose 12 books have indelibly marked the landscape of poetry. I said American poetry here, but I'm just going to say marked the landscape of poetry over the last half century. He has received countless honors, including the National Book Award for his 2019 collection Sightlines and the Ruth Lilly Poetry Prize from our colleagues at the Poetry Foundation. The Times Book Review has said that Se's poetry is, quote, fascinated by how the accumulation and juxtaposition of disparate, keenly observed things can get us from here to there. And it's true that Se's poems can feel like delicate tangles whose meditative nodding calls attention to passages and disjuncture. He has said in an interview, quote, One of the things a poem certainly can do is arrest time, end quote. His writing is cosmic in scope, while commanding a microscopic awareness of the world's smallest movements, the breath of a breeze, the rustle of a leaf, the crack of a pool cue, quote, these carbonized griefs and hungers, end quote. Into the Hush, C's latest collection, contains a zuihitsu that runs throughout, a traditional Japanese form of highly stylized personal essay, with a recurring image in this case of a pupil being led by a teacher in the act of mark making with a brush. This simple scene conveying transmission, poetic tradition, attention, and embodiment grounds C's lyrical poems, which move in this book through suburbs, mesas, and jungles, where species extinction and environmental disaster threaten like a panther stalking a clearing. Quote, as you hold a Rubik's Cube of time in your hands, he writes, the orange sunrise is nowhere, everywhere, and damn, the pieces are pieces you cannot flip back. Our second brilliant guest this evening has traveled here from Santa Fe, New Mexico, to be with us, where he is Professor Emeritus at the Institute of American Indian Arts. My good friends, please welcome Arthur Sze.
Thank you for such a beautiful introduction. I want to thank Parker, Brett, and Matt, and the Poetry Society of America for inviting me to read this evening, and what a pleasure to be reading with Monica. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to read poems from my new book, Into the Hush. Anvil. When a black butterfly flits past, when you glimpse the outlines of apple trees, when you smell the sprig of sunrise and walk up to the ditch, when bearing Aleut, Juma, Tuscarora join the list of vanished languages, when you turn a spigot and irrigate blossoming pear trees, when the time of your life is a time of earthquakes, when a woman hit by a car while crossing the street recovers, then slides into pain, when a matsutake emerges out of the rubble of Hiroshima, when a bartender blows smoke rings and slips through hoops into his past, when foragers slice russulas, amanitas, clitosebes, and pursue red-capped boletes, when water slips through roots, rises through a trunk, streams into leaves, when in our bodies we sway and flood, when you bloody your hands, when the mind like this earth is struck and tilts its axis, when under summer stars you have built a cabin in the wilderness, when you gaze at Aldebaran and sense a first frost on the grass, when in our bodies we ride the waves of our earth, here is the anvil on which to hammer your days. This next poem is in the voice of a jaguar song. Just after you sign and envision building homes on this tract, you smell me in the dark. Know that I move through this terrain at night, though you only think of building and selling. Even now you believe you can borrow my spirit by wearing a mask of my face on your face. Look at me. Delve into your fears. Is your deepest fear to be hacked, strangled, or be strapped to an IV in a bed with no chance to die? I can grasp a turtle and break its shell with one bite. I can pounce on a deer and crush its skull and neck with my teeth. You slash and burn in the jungle, force the snakes and macaws to retreat. You even burn your own species alive. Look into my eyes. I am your mirror and transformer. If you destroy my species, I will shapeshift and hunt you in your dreams. The fingerprints of your hands resemble the black rosettes on my skin, and you will not escape. You will never comprehend the twin nights in my eyes. Remember, as a child, you came up the steps from the basement and, flicking off the light at the top of the stairs, feared a hand about to grasp your shoulder from behind. That fear is alive. And now, as you rummage for keys at your apartment doorstep, I am a passing jogger about to pounce. I am the creature who smells your darkest thoughts. And as you turn the key in the lock day or night, out of the darkness I spring. Vectors. First extinction in the Galapagos Islands, the least vermilion flycatcher. Hopis drill a foot deep and plant blue corn along a wash. Danger, a woman brushed on the side of a napalm bomb. In an oblong box emptied of firewood, a black widow web. Shaving, he nicked himself and stared in the mirror in a moment of blood. Out of a saddlebag, a teen pulls a severed goat's head. Before signing his name, he recalls hotel rooms were once used as torture chambers. In Thessaloniki, the beach attendant made a gun of his hand and fired at him. Prisoners cackled when the inmate on stage said, "Is it not time for my painkiller?" Weighing mushrooms, the Tibetan cashier grins. You suffer from suspicion. I suffer from kindness. A mercenary turned car mechanic spilled a pile of Krugerrands onto the table. Looking up from a tusk under the lamp, the carver smiled. It's butter in my hands. This next poem is in the form of a haibun, drought. Deer raise their ears as he steps on gravel, then lower their heads and brows on grass as he moves beyond them toward the street. He does not know why the catalpa tree is the first to shed leaves, the last to leaf. But when he stops to gaze at the bare branches, the sky's a surface of a pond starting to freeze. He has tried and failed all summer. Now the garden's overgrown with weeds. Another apricot twig snaps when bent. After a rat burrowed into the outdoor sofa, he had it hauled to the dump. In the dark, a gleaming flatbed truck transports large cylinders of waste down a mesa, along city limits to an underground salt bed. At 3 a.m. while he sleeps, holy shit erupts out a doorway. Flames rise in an apartment complex and alarms sound. Reddening pear leaves, opening spigots, he drains the last drops from tanks. Eraser song. Caoutchouc, I was named in the Amazon and renamed rubber when a chemist rubbed me against scratchings from a lead pencil. Today I am composed of volcanic ash held in a vulcanized matrix where my polymers lift the black letters of your graphite off a page. When you rub and rub me against black lines, You don't recognize I work more by chemical contact than by force. When you look at ice crystals glinting in the sun, you see white roses dropping white petals onto white paper, and as a prism bends sunlight into a spectrum of colors, joy widens into a delta of joys. You don't notice all the letters of all the words you discard ravel off me. They sting just as your eyes sting when you gaze into fresh sunlit snow. When you look at the and find I've listed all the vowels, loss quickens the world. When a cloud passes across the sun and the sun reappears, you register how vanished lines and lines on a page form a palimpsest. When you coalesce your words to reclaim the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog, you recognize we need each other, and while my gift is that all the letters of all the words you discard smudge off me, your secret is that all those letters amass like a glowing white pyramid of Giza in the night desert behind your eyes. Let's see. I wrote my first pantoums for this book, and I wanted to keep them short. And obviously the form of the pantoum in 4-line stanzas, the second and the fourth line repeat and become the first and third line of the following 4-line stanza. And I like that processional quality to the form. It makes me think a bit of gamelan music, where you can hear those changes or those sheets of sound moving. And one of the things I did to make the form my own was I took the 4-line stanzas and I broke them into couplets. And then when I looked at the repeating lines, they looked too linear, too predictable to me. So then I decided to float a caesura, a white space inside of each line to change the rhythm. This is called Papyrus Pantoum. Coyotes surround a buck staggering in the snow. Under a rising moon we step along a ridge of white sand. Sandhill cranes return in low V's and land in a cornfield. In Bolivia, they extract lithium out of altiplano salt flats. Under a rising moon, we step along a ridge of white sand. You burn me, torn off papyrus wrapped around a corpse. In Bolivia, they extract lithium out of altiplano salt flats. A claret cup cactus flowers among sandstone rubble. You burn me, torn off papyrus wrapped around a corpse. Rain makes quicksilver, strikes on the surface of a lake. A claret cup cactus flowers among sandstone rubble. In twilight we sway and surge into flame. Rain makes quicksilver strikes on the surface of a lake. Coyotes surround a buck staggering in the snow. In twilight we sway and surge into flame. Sandhill cranes return in low V's and land in a cornfield. In 2017, a new hummingbird was discovered in the Andean highlands, and it's called the blue-throated hill star. This poem is called Leafless. Sunlight strikes the leafless aspen branches, strikes the white picket fence, and as I look at highlighted edges, my eyes sting. Tufted grass stalks sway in the flooding rays, and in the poinsettia of this hour, I need some darkness to bloom. In this space, a snow leopard leaps among rocks, the rosettes of its fur a moving landscape. Its hunger scents the air. As I exhale, a blue-throated hill star sips from a chucaragua flower. A fly agaric pushes out of soil. A raccoon scampers backward down an elm. We are always running from and lunging to. When we stop, the eagle feather of this pause blesses. Before light of the shortest day lifts to the hills, it runs across my line of sight in widening gold. And I'm going to close with the title sequence to the book, Into the Hush. It's in 6 sections. Let's see. Into the Hush. A magpie feather gleams in the grass. Today, you are not having open heart surgery, nor are you strapped to a hospital bed inhaling oxygen. You do not mix cement and sand in a wheelbarrow, nor did you sleep the night in a field off an interstate highway. This morning you live in a sparrow's warble, in pale green leaves trembling in sunshine. You catch the curling wave of the day where peas flower on a trellis, where apricot blossoms tinge the tips of 100-year-old tree. Weeding in the garden, you get stronger as you dig. You become well, island, field. Out of nowhere, a rough-legged hawk glides downward with outstretched wings. Aspen leaves flutter without wind. When you've worked this long, your art is no longer art, but a wand that wakes your eyes to what is. Purple irises about to unfurl. He tries to stain the sanded redwood deck, but cottonwood tufts land everywhere. Smell of bread rising from a basement oven. Gold earrings on a bedside table. A cloud passes across the sun and darkens the brick. When is becoming. Digging a trench for a new water line, he shovels a blue bottle up into daylight. As a supermoon drops to the horizon. Lichens on a bridge absorb truck fumes, larger than Manhattan and iceberg calves off the Antarctic shelf. A man at a gas station opens fire on others. In the dark, you can't see coyotes beyond the fence, but hear them gather. A skater leaps into a triple Lutz, then slips on landing. A dog trots up with a headless raven in its mouth. As a hawk glides over a canyon with outstretched wings, you scan for movement. Titanium scraps dumped into a barrel of radioactive waste start sparking. Something starts sparking inside you. Walking on a sheet of ice over a lake, you sense the edge of danger changing shape underneath. Literal facts of this world tighten in a noose. A swift stays airborne for months, while a flicker sips water pooled on a tarp. On a ladder, lifting a nest off a beam, I find dried mud at the base. Inside are no eggs or parts of shell. The matted, circular interior contrasts with the skewed stalks of the exterior, where in a flurry of wings a sparrow bled and 2 crows feasted on eggs. I have no wings or winged sandals, am no guide to the realm of the dead, but basking in this June light, I hear a neighbor's chainsaw run all afternoon against an elm by the street, and wince, let go, wince, let go. Then mycorrhizal, as mind and nature entwine each other, and as a skater gathers speed, I lift off the ice, not knowing if I will fail or land, but in the spin of a leap, lift in the risk of what we may become, and find a daylight inside day. The peyote plant in this pot has not shifted hue or grown the slightest. Month after month, staring at the crown, I yearn for a bud, but none appears, and its blue slate hue is like gazing down a clouded gravel road at dusk. Yet, in this Ocotillo moment, I smell how this place craves rain. A woodpecker has drilled holes into a piñon trunk, and I write into the hush. At dawn, as outlines of a Japanese maple emerge out of darkness, the black branches of an alligator juniper with sky whitening behind, I write along the curve of an expanding wave that delineates the shapes of all things. Near the front door, I snap the twig of a lavender bush. As a hunter of a gemsbok runs for hours in the gate of a gemsbok, in spring, I want to take on the contours of spring before stepping out. Out of the blue of a robin's eggs, out of the abyss when a cellist pauses between notes, out of the semaphore of saying something we did not know we knew, out of an Olmec dagger unearthed when digging a new subway line, out of all seasons at once. Praise to finding a single black morel in a cardiologist's garden, to aspen leaves motionless after rain, to finding a rotating lighthouse beam when waves crashed against our vessel under lightning-filled clouds, to the lichen green with wavy edges on a wet black trunk, to the sunlight we awaken in each other. Praise to the white balls of viburnum that effloresce and drop to the ground, to the gold shower when a violinist's bow runs against strings, to the radiating joy, grief, despair, hope, love that makes us human, to the patter of rain on the roof before sunrise, to daylight that is daylight, to the hush that is now. Thank you.